Governor Greg Abbott took a page out of former President Donald Trump's playbook by promising Texas will build a wall of its own on the border. I want to bring your attention to what we're seeing out here. Both pointed to gaps in Trump's wall, which are very visible from where we're standing right here, claiming they need to finish it to maintain safety. However, a landowner we spoke with who already has had land taken away for the Trump wall tells me this danger they speak of is exaggerated, and he's afraid even more of his land will be taken away for the governor's project.
That's right there, no lights or anything.
Jose Cavazos is pointing to his family's property just beyond these orange barriers where former President Donald Trump's unfinished wall on the Mexico border now stands. His family has owned land here in South Texas along the Rio Grande River for decades, though it has shrunk in recent years after the government took some for this wall.
So far they've taken 6.5 acres.
Cavazos worries it could be worse after Governor Greg Abbott announced earlier this month Texas will build its own wall.
There's always that in the back of my mind that they might decide to do more things out there.
On Wednesday, Abbott and Trump toured the unfinished wall in South Texas. After a briefing, they have criticized President Joe Biden for the spike in border crossings this year after he ceased construction of Trump's wall in his first day in office.
You see, an unfinished border. This is Biden's fault because President Biden is not continuing what President Trump began.
We produced the safest, best border we've ever had. And now, in a short period of time.
With 4 months left in this fiscal year, there have been more than 920,000 border encounters just in the southwest sector, which includes Texas, more than double than all of last year. However, critics of the wall say these numbers are inflated because Trump's pandemic asylum ban encouraged migrants to keep trying to cross because getting caught did not have legal consequences. Abbott and Trump disagree.
We did a job like nobody thought was possible.
President Biden needs to start right there and finish building the border wall.
Critics also point to the potential cost of Abbott's wall, as Trump's wall has already cost taxpayers $15 billion or $20 million per mile. Abbott has ordered $250 million from the state budget to be used as a down payment, which he justifies as the cost to ensure public safety.
I cannot tell you the number of people who have told me that they've had guns brandished in their faces.
Cavazos says that money could be better spent elsewhere since he has not felt this danger he speaks of.
We don't understand why he's spending this money for something that's useless. It's not going to help at all. Never had people put a gun into my head.
Hidalgo County, which is where Abbott and Trump toured today, was one of a handful of border counties taken off the governor's disaster declaration earlier this week. Now, they were taken off the disaster declaration because they have not declared a local disaster and did not want to cooperate with the state's efforts. So far, only 9 of the 28 counties included still in that disaster declaration are even on the border with Mexico. Reporting live at the Texas-Mexico border, Christian Flores, CBS Austin News. Where I'm standing right now is the borderline for 3 congressional districts that extend well beyond the Austin area. Lloyd Doggett's district goes all the way down to San Antonio, hugging a few cities along I-35. Meanwhile, Michael McCall goes all the way to the Houston area, and Roger Williams expands all the way to just outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now, some citizens and lawmakers hope this all changes during redistricting this year, but they're not too optimistic.
I believe gerrymandering is the root cause of the dysfunction that has crippled Congress.
At a Texas Senate redistricting committee hearing, Central Texans sounded off on past and current maps.
My voice has not been heard. I am not being represented by officials that have been elected because of the gerrymandering that's occurred.
Texas has disenfranchised its voters in one way or another when drawing maps.
Austin has proven to be a case study in gerrymandering. In a part of the state that heavily skews Democrat, 4 of the 5 congressional districts slicing into the city belong to Republicans. State lawmakers are again tasked with redistricting, which they must do every 10 years.
How do you think this will affect you personally, and not only you, but your colleagues in Central Texas, your congressional colleagues in Central Texas, and really across the state?
If Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick and Ken Paxton are in charge, I'm sure they will try to achieve the most partisan redistricting plan they can.
Districts for Congressman Lloyd Doggett, Chip Roy, Michael McCall, Pete Sessions, and Roger Williams stretch out from Austin to Houston, San Antonio, DFW, and rural counties west of here, which some argue waters down the impact of votes in the Democratic stronghold. In 2017, a panel of federal judges ruled some of Texas's congressional districts were illegally drawn, including Doggett's, but the U.S. Supreme Court later upheld these maps.
I hope that we can see Austin not remain the largest city in America that does not have a majority of its population in any congressional district.
But a major part of redistricting requires census data, which is not expected until the summer.
It may be October, November before we complete lines, which is very interesting because, the filing deadline's in December.
I'm going to run for re-election in a district. I don't know which one it will be or where it will go.
When John's rights are under attack, what do we do? Stand up right now!
Chants outside the Texas Capitol.
What do we want? Protect trans kids!
Shifted to personal stories from parents.
To fight for the equal rights of my kids.
Detailing why they're against bills under consideration that would ban transgender children from playing school sports of the gender with which they identify. This includes parents like Molly Carnes, whose daughter Clara
never did play team sports in high school because she didn't feel safe, because the state is not safe right now for trans kids.
Wayne Maines says his transgender daughter Nicole Maines, who's the co-star of the hit TV show Supergirl, was allowed to play school sports in a different state.
When I told her we were moving to Texas, she goes, Dad, I don't know if I can go to Texas.
The father-daughter duo now advocates for transgender rights and are pushing back against Texas's bills because they believe school sports got the actress to where she is now.
And she got to play sports with her friends, and she learned about teamwork and confidence, and she's one of the up-and-coming stars in Hollywood today.
Inside the Capitol, a sharp partisan divide defined a House committee's discussion on the bill, while the state's governing body for school sports confirmed they have not faced issues laid out by supporters of the ban.
And the results prove the unfairness of forcing our daughters and granddaughters to compete against biological males.
How big of a problem is that in Texas?
Before 2016, again, it wasn't an issue at all. There wasn't even a discussion about it.
Previous versions have not passed so far, with the Texas House serving as the hurdle for the school sports bill. But even without it passing,
as they continue this attack on trans youth,
the prolonged debate has had an effect. The Trevor Project, which is the world's largest suicide prevention organization for LGBTQ youth, has received almost 11,000 calls so far this year in Texas alone, a 150% jump from the same time last year.
It has a severe effect on our mental health as a family, so it has an effect. It's not just noise.
And the House committee is still listening to public testimony. We will follow along with that to see if they take any action on this bill tonight. Now, keep in mind, this bill was put in a position not to pass on the floor, even after making it out of a House committee in the end of the regular session. Then the House committee responsible for setting the House floor's calendar did not schedule this bill until the very last day, and lawmakers ran out of time to even begin discussions on this bill. Reporting live from the Texas Capitol, Christian Flores, CBS Austin News. I do want to show you what we're looking at on drivetexas.org, a very good resource. All of these roads that are highlighted in gray have ice on them. So that means just about every major road here in the Austin area has ice. 183, SH 45, 620, Mopac. So I do want to show you right now, we're on this on-ramp to SH 45. It is blocked off right now by Austin police. And actually just a little bit ago, we did see a couple of mobility authority trucks go up here. I was told by a police officer here that they're up to clean debris. Now here, you can really see how icy it's been. Look at the ice buildup just on here. It's been raining pretty much all morning long. That's freezing rain. And you can imagine if it looks like that here, what it's going to look like in some of these elevated roadways, like much of the flyovers on SH 45. And also show you some ice over here on surfaces that are a little bit closer to the road here. That's a frozen solid piece of ice right here. Now, just down the road is where that 26-car pileup happened. It's been pretty clear right now. You can still see traffic is moving, although there are not a ton of cars out here. So it does look like some people are, heeding the warning of not to drive unless absolutely necessary. But we are seeing a lot more cars here on these service roads just outside. Now, these police officers that are blocking off these drive-ups or these roads, we're probably going to see that all across town because, as I showed you on that map, all of these roads have ice accumulation on them. Even just walking around here, we got to be a little bit careful. On the grass and the trees over there, you see the ice build up. So this is something that we've been seeing this whole time out here. Again, just you see some of this ice build up. It gives a really good picture of what to expect on this road, where you're not really going to be able to see some of this ice, a lot of that black ice that they're warning you about, which is why they're telling you, well, we're telling you to stay home unless absolutely necessary. Now, one thing we are going to be looking out for, schools are still open at last check, so around the afternoon when kids have to be picked up, that's when you can see a lot more cars in the road. But for right now, We're not seeing any cars right here, but imagine if this was a year ago today, before work from home, where there might be some commuters. So these are things that we're going to be paying attention to all day long. This rain continues to come down, so things are only going to get worse, is kind of the likely outcome here. But for now, we'll send it back to you, Avery.
Christian, you spoke to the CEO of ERCOT. Did he give you any idea of when the power will be back on?
Look, there's just not going to be a single timeline for when power is going to be completely restored. We're going to see a constant seesaw of power being restored and outages taking over. I'll give a good example here with Austin Energy. I know in my last hit I had mentioned in the 30 minutes since I had last checked, about 3,000 homes or households had their power restored. And just in the last hour, 1,500 lost their power all over again. So that's just a push and pull we're going to see all morning. And the big reason why Avery has been hammering at home all morning long, where we have just this buildup of ice from this freezing rain that happened overnight that we could see more throughout the day. I'm going to go ahead and step out of the way very carefully so I don't have an embarrassing moment on television. But if you can see, this is what our parking lot pretty much looks like. I mean, this looks more like a road in Siberia than in Texas, quite honestly. And that's going to be the big issue, the big hurdle with restoring power throughout Texas and here in Austin, is because these are conditions that ERCOT and these power generators are just not used to. Now, we did ask some of these tough questions that a lot of people have been asking us, and that, frankly, we have these questions as well because a lot of us are dealing with these power outages. One, we did ask about just the preparations, because a lot of people have felt these preparations ahead of this week have been insufficient, especially considering our meteorologists have been predicting the storm, and this more or less has been exactly what they predicted. And they said they made the preparations like they would over the summer for historic heat waves, where we do see that historic and oftentimes pretty dangerous level of energy use. However, the things that they aren't competing with over the summer that they are competing with right now will be things like icing on the wind turbines and overcast clouds, really just hurting solar power. But above all, I mean, the majority of the power that is being generated is gas and coal and nuclear energy plants, and the freezing temperatures have really hurt those plants' ability to be able to get that power out. So that's one of the big things where we just have that cold weather. The other thing being, they also mentioned they had to cut off power just because if they didn't, there would be a more catastrophic event where they would have to rebuild the system. So these are things that we may not see an exact time when we could get this power back. I know it's been going on all day, past few days, so we'll be sure to keep you updated as soon as we get kind of a better timeline as to when more Texans can experience that power being restored. For now, reporting live in North Austin, Christian Flores, CBS Austin News. While with former President Donald Trump at the Mexico border last week, Governor Abbott really doubled down on his promise that Texas will build its own wall. Today's briefing was more focused on resources after the governor made border security funding a special session agenda item.
They have incredible needs.
Governor Greg Abbott has already promised Texas will build its own wall on the Mexico border, but says the border area sheriffs surrounding him at Saturday's roundtable need more. With 4 months to go this fiscal year, there have already been more than double the border encounters in the southwest sector than all of last year.
They need more manpower because of the current administration's complete abandonment of enforcing the laws that were passed by the United States Congress concerning immigration. There is an unprecedented increase in the number of people coming across the border.
According to Customs and Border Protection statistics, that agency's staffing in each year of the Trump administration, both overall and in the southwest sector, was less than even the lowest staffed year in the Obama administration. Why weren't you more critical of President Trump for that decreased staffing?
President Trump did more than any other president has ever done to secure the border, as well as more than any other president to decrease the number of people coming across the border.
3 of the 4 fiscal years of the Trump presidency saw southwest border crossings come in at about half of what the Biden administration has seen this year. But in 2019, there were more than 977,000 southwest border encounters, about 50,000 more than this year. Additionally, Trump's presidency saw almost 2.4 million southwest border encounters combined, compared to less than 2.1 million in Obama's last term. Down at the border,
that's right there.
Neighbors like Jose Cavazos raised questions about additional border security funding. We spoke to Cavazos while covering Abbott visiting the border last week with Trump. Cavazos already has had 6.5 acres of his land taken away for Trump's wall, and has worried Abbott's wall will take away more.
Political. It has nothing to do with security.
Abbott and other Republican leaders insist this will cut down on drugs and crime coming across the border.
Dealing with gang members and dealing with people from very dangerous countries.
But Cavazos says these safety concerns are exaggerated.
We don't understand why he's spending this money for something that's useless. It's not going to help at all. Never had people put a gun into my head.
Reporting from the Texas Capitol, Christian Flores, CBS Austin News.